And we are back with the fifth and the final segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this final segment, it's going to be a bit of a shorter segment than usual. I'm going to be talking about the Lakers and their trust in Redick after the previous game because honestly, I really can't get enough of talking about the Lakers, can I? Right? But this Lakers game, it was very, very impressive, and a lot of it will be attributed to their new head coach in Redick. So I got this article pulled up. So the Lakers, as you know, they won the game. This is the first time that they've started 1-0 since Kobe retired. Yes. The first time that they started 1-0 in the season since Kobe retired in 2016. And this they really heavily attributed this win not just to Anthony Davis and his dominant performance, but to JJ and his coaching scheme. So, as I mentioned before, the Lakers, they hired Redick in the offseason. And when you move on from Darvin Ham, thank the Lord that happened, because look at exactly what they did in the previous game. So there was expectations that he would bring a progressed knowledge of the game of basketball, along with the ability to connect with players as a former player himself. Not to mention, now I will say, yes, Darvin Ham, he did play in the NBA before, but I will say his coaching scheme and his methods were rather outdated. He did not want to implement any sort of spacing into the system, which was a very, very big problem with the Lakers. Considering how LeBron and AD are dominant in the paint, having somebody else in the paint when they're trying to work in the paint is not ideal. I don't know why he couldn't realize that and why he didn't make adjustments, but he didn't. And Redick knew this and ended up adapting to a lot of the systems that he ended up adapting to a lot of the things that Minnesota ended up throwing at him, not to mention the fact that he was just, he has a more modern approach to the game, and an approach that encourages winning. Obviously, Darvin Ham, he wanted to win, but a team that didn't want to shoot the three ball all that much is not going to be a winning team in this NBA. So this article continues. There were immediate skeptics after his hire. Of course, haters don't think that he's going to be a good coach considering his lack of experience as being a coach. However, I don't think that Redick doesn't know ball. In fact, obviously, if you are a fantastic player in the NBA, you'd have to know ball. Now, there was a lot of skepticism, mainly because Steve Nash, he used to be a coach for the Brooklyn Nets, but it didn't really work out, mainly because the system, his rotations, all of this, that, it just wasn't, it just didn't work. Not to mention the offense relying on three players, let alone eventually turning into two, was not ideal for Steve Nash. And so obviously these skeptics, when he was hired, a lot of people didn't really expect much coming in from the Lakers. But the players and the organization continuously raved. And the results showed last Tuesday. After the game, Davis spoke about what worked in Redick's game plan. So he said, the game plan, the schemes that he had on both ends of the floor, he trusts us and we trust him. As far as what he teaches us and what he wants us to do on the floor, on both ends, and it's our job to execute. I think we were very prepared tonight, Anthony Davis said. Like I said, we executed the game plan to a T. I'm not going to tell you the game plan because I know Minnesota will probably be watching this and figure out how to try to beat us next time, but our game plan was elite and we executed it and we were able to get the win. And to think, Anthony Davis thinks that the game plan, that the scheme was elite, and it could have been even better. Because remember, they only made 5 threes after taking about 30 of them. So imagine if they were to hit just a couple more threes in that game. Now, this game was never close. It never seemed like it was going to be close. I mean, the Timberwolves, they did end up mounting a little bit of a comeback to make the game close and closer to within single digits. But when Redick saw that that was happening, instead of waiting for the lead to get blown, he calls a timeout. Which is it's obviously you'd think that is some basic things that a coach is supposed to do, and a smart thing to do would be to call the timeout in that situation. But under previous coaching experiences with Darvin Ham, Darvin just didn't do that. This is just, it's not ideal. Darvin Ham, most of the time, if this was Darvin Ham, he would wait until when the lead is already gone and then call a timeout. JJ Redick ended up calling a timeout before they could even get the lead, thus stopping the momentum. Like that was a, I don't want to say it's like an underrated thing, but that is something that not many people would pay attention to or pick up on in terms of coaching and coaching schemes, because being wise with your timeouts is a part of the coaching. And one of the big reasons why I don't think Doc Rivers is a very solid head coach, because there would be times where you would think Doc Rivers should call a timeout, but instead he doesn't, and he just lets his players play despite the fact that they're actively blowing leads. It doesn't make any sense. This was his time on the Clippers. So also we do have somebody else in the chat I'd like to acknowledge. Keep it up, bro. I'm for NBA conversations. So he has an ear emoji there, so I'm assuming listening. Thank you so much. JJ is that young student teacher of coaches. I mean, he's very solid. He didn't play, excuse me. He coached a very solid game. And when the three-point shots weren't working, they had a system that ended up going into that he had a system ready going into place just in case they were missing all of these shots. Thibodeau, I don't really agree with his rotations. I think he plays his players a little bit too much. But again, his coaching, it definitely improved the Knicks at a way that I didn't expect the Knicks to even improve on. A lot of it is probably Jalen Brunson, but again, Thibs isn't really as bad of a coach as he was on the Timberwolves, I will say that. His rotations, they could use a little bit of work though. But continuing to what the article says, it didn't really take long for Redick to earn that trust with his players despite being young and inexperienced for the head coaching position. Davis reiterated the implicit trust that the Lakers have in their new coach, which was one of the things that Darvin Ham ended up losing with the Lakers. I mean, Darvin Ham, there have been reports that Darvin Ham had essentially lost the locker room because his schemes and all of this and anything that he was doing, just the players didn't really trust. And now they have a head coach that they can get behind and that they trust. And when you have that, it really goes a long way, because part of winning a championship is trust. Trust in your teammates, trust in your coaches, trust in the system. You need all of that to perform. And Davis, in the quote, he said, "We have all bought into what he is trying to build. He still has that competitive nature as a coach. You know, his will to win. He's a straight shooter. Everything like he was as a player, he's kind of transferred over, which can be tough coming from the player to the coach. But having a great staff around him, Nate, Scotty, St. Jean, Linz, Bob, it's just been, in my eyes, a pretty easy transition for him. I like him a lot, and I think what he's trying to build here and what he's doing. Now, it's our job as players to buy into what he's preaching and try to keep this going." So, again, this is only just game one, so maybe this performance was a bit of a fluke. We don't know, but I don't think so. Just based off of what I saw and how the Lakers are running their offense, I don't think that previous game was a fluke. In fact, I think that this is just a warning to the rest of the league, like, to watch out. The Lakers could be a scary team. But again, that's just preseason, so not preseason stuff, but it's just the first game of the season, so no way to tell for sure. But that's all that I have on this final segment. So thank you so much for tuning in to the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so remember to subscribe, leave a positive review. Really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. As usual, we love to hear what you guys have to say during the show, whether you guys have a hot take, a burning question, anything you've been dying to share. We're all ears. So if you really want your comment or question to get noticed, I recommend using Super Chat. You just click on the $ below the chat box and you can send in your comments and or donations. That way, they really help the show, make it much more interactive between myself and you guys. If Super Chat is not really your thing, then that's okay. You can always use the link displayed below the ticker, gsmcpodcast.net, and you can send in your comments and or donations. That way, they really help the show. And that's all that I really have on this podcast for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. And actually, you know what? Before I go, let's talk about, I'll go ahead and talk about the 4 games that are going to be happening later on tonight. The Spurs, they're going to match up against the Mavericks on TNT. Celtics are going to go up against the Wizards. Thunder are going to go up against the Denver Nuggets at 10. And the Timberwolves are going to match up against the Kings at 10 as well. The nationally televised games are the Spurs and Mavericks, along with the Thunder and the Nuggets. So we're going to talk about those games, and, well, tomorrow, actually. But, so, for the predictions, I think the Mavericks are going to win this game against the Spurs. It's going to be close. Celtics are easily going to win against the Wizards. And I feel like I think the Nuggets are going to end up winning this game. I think that home field advantage is going to be what they need to win. And I think, I want to say that the Kings are going to end up winning in this matchup against the Timberwolves. So that's all that I have on this segment. That's actually all that I have. So I'm your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to